Welcome to the Techmeme Ride Home for Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. I'm Brian McCullough. Today, we know when the PlayStation VR2 is coming, when you can pre-order it, and how much it's going to cost. What do you know? A bunch of news in the whole Twitter saga, the reality of the ransomware industrial complex, and an interesting new Mac app to help you remember everything you've ever done on your computer. Here's what you missed today in the world of tech. Sony plans to launch the PlayStation VR2 on February 22nd for $550, 530 pounds, or €600, depending on where you live. Pre-orders open November 15. Setting calendar reminder now. Quoting The Verge. Pre-orders will be limited to Sony's PlayStation online store in many markets, including the US, UK, France, and Germany. Games, including Horizon Call of the Mountain, will also be available to pre-order later this month. The PSVR2 headset is a major upgrade over the original with an OLED screen, a 110-degree field of view, and 4K HDR support. It also supports up to 120 Hz for smoother frame rates and gameplay. The VR headset has 4 cameras built into the front of the display, so you won't have to set up external cameras to follow your movements. We were impressed with our initial hands-on with the PlayStation VR2, with my colleague Jay Peters describing it as a major upgrade and an improved single-cap setup. The new orb-shaped PSVR2 Sense controllers include adaptive triggers and haptic feedback, much like the DualSense, and can also detect finger touches. We've created the PSVR2 headset with comfort in mind and a slightly slimmer and lighter design compared to our previous headset, says Isabel Tomatis, VP of Brand, Hardware, and Peripherals at Sony Interactive Entertainment. We've also included an integrated vent for extra airflow and a lens adjustment dial for a more customized feel, end quote. Today in Twitter, Elon Musk said yesterday the blue checkmark system is bullshit, his words, and Twitter Blue will be an $8 a month service with half the ads, priority in replies, mentions, and search, and a few other bells and whistles. So I guess floating that $20 a month thing was just a trial balloon, quoting Silicon Republic. The new owner of Twitter said a blue tick will cost $8 a month with the price adjusted by country. A blue tick mark next to a username is currently free, but is typically reserved for high-profile figures and users who have been verified as trustworthy sources. In a series of tweets yesterday, Musk said the new subscription model will give, quote, power to the people, and called the current way of verifying users a, quote, lords and peasants system. The billionaire said the new subscription will also give blue tick users, quote, priority in replies, mentions, and search, which he claimed would help reduce spam on the platform. These users will also get half as many ads and the ability to post long video and audio content, he added. A number of high-profile Twitter users have spoken out against Musk's plans to charge for the blue tick. The billionaire previously hinted that the monthly subscription could be $20 a month. Author Stephen King tweeted that he would leave the platform if he was charged this much to keep the verified status. Musk responded with the lower $8 subscription option and said, quote, Twitter cannot rely entirely on advertisers. It is unclear when this subscription model could begin and if it would be a replacement for Twitter Blue, which lets users pay for features such as the ability to undo tweets, bookmark and save tweets, and customize their display, end quote. Also, Twitter's chief customer officer, Sarah Personette, has apparently resigned, not fired, resigned. And sources say ad company IPG recommended that clients pause their Twitter spending over moderation concerns. Comedian and verified Twitter user Tim Heidecker has put the site's moderation practices to the test by starting hashtag Trump is dead, which began trending on November 1. Sources are telling the Washington Post that the U.S. government is exploring whether it has the legal authority to review Elon Musk's Twitter deal, which gives large foreign investors access to confidential data. Although, I mean, they could have thought about that a while ago. It's not like this whole drama was low profile and not drawn out. Perhaps the most interesting thing, though, according to an internal email seen by the Washington Post, Twitter appears to be rushing out a high-risk paywalled video feature, letting users charge to view their videos, with Twitter taking a cut. What could go wrong with people posting videos for pay? Quote, the company appears to be aiming to rush out the feature referred to as paywalled video with a target of 1 to 2 weeks before launch. But the team has, quote, identified the risk as high, according to the email, which was sent by an employee on Twitter's product trust team. The email cites, quote, risks related to copyrighted content, creator, user, trust issues, and legal compliance, and says the feature will undergo a brief internal review on those issues before moving forward. Whether the feature was in development before Musk took over is unclear, and Twitter declined to comment. But the accelerated timeline gives the company's internal review teams just 3 days to provide feedback on the potential risks. The timeline could signal Musk's intent to move far more quickly in building and launching new features than Twitter has in the past, even if that means taking on greater risks of abuse or liability. Twitter recently branched into live audio with a feature called Spaces and has begun experimenting with premium features such as a tip jar for content creators and a super follow option that lets popular tweeters charge a subscription fee for bonus content. The video shift could also push Twitter, which is unusual among major social networks for allowing nudity and consensual pornography, into competition with sites that specialize in adult content, end quote. And, of course, people have been wondering when certain folks would be allowed back onto Twitter. I think most of us had our money on day one. But no, Elon Musk says Twitter will not reinstate banned accounts, quote, until we have a clear process for doing so, which will take at least a few more weeks, end quote. That was quoting a tweet from Elon himself. I guess we can read this one as a dodge, since the U.S. elections are next week, so this would conveniently save any controversy until after that. This is quoting Elon himself once again. Twitter's Content Moderation Council will include representatives with widely divergent views, which will certainly include the civil rights community and groups who face hate-fueled violence, end quote. Related to that, but also from the you might have missed your window on this file, Tumblr has updated its community guidelines to allow nudity, mature subject matter, and sexual themes, but says sexually explicit acts remain off limits. Quoting The Verge, the company updated its community guidelines earlier today, laying out a set of rules that stops short of its earlier permissive attitude towards sexuality, but that formally allows a wider range of imagery. Quote, we now welcome a broader range of expression, creativity, and art on Tumblr, including content depicting the human form. Yes, that includes the naked human form. So even if your creations contain nudity, mature subject matter, or sexual themes, you can now share them on Tumblr using the appropriate community label, the post says. Visual depictions of sexually explicit acts remain off limits on Tumblr, end quote. A Help Center post and the community guidelines offer a little more detail. They say that, quote, text, images, and videos that contain nudity, offensive language, sexual themes, or mature subject matter is allowed on Tumblr, but, quote, visual depictions of sexually explicit acts or content with an overt focus on genitalia aren't. There's an exception for, quote, historically significant art that you may find in a mainstream museum and which depicts sex acts, such as from India's Sunga Empire, end quote. Although it must be labeled with a mature content or sexual themes tag so that users can filter it from their dashboards. Tumblr banned adult content, including, quote, female-presenting nipples in 2018, while owned by Verizon, which later sold the company to WordPress.com owner Automattic. Automattic CEO Matt Mullenweg said in late September that fully overturning the ban wasn't feasible, in large part because internet infrastructure services like payment processors and Apple's iOS App Store typically frown on explicit adult content. However, Mullenweg said he hoped to bring Tumblr's policy more in line with that of WordPress.com, which also bans sexually explicit imagery, but offers less nebulous protections for nudity in art, end quote. Twitch has launched a feature called Guest Star, which lets streamers pull other creators and fans into their streams for a talk show-like experience, bringing this out of beta now for all users. Quoting TechCrunch, Guest Star makes it possible for anyone to pull up to 5 speakers into a stream at once. Creators can host and manage guests from Twitch Studio and OBS, the streaming software of choice for many of the app's more advanced creators. Guest Star can be enabled through the creator dashboard, where it's now available to everyone. With Guest Star, streamers can directly invite guests or tap members of chat to join. Viewers in chat can also ask to be featured on stream, providing another way for creators to incentivize and reward their supporters. Hopping into someone else's stream just requires clicking a pop-up notification, and guests can join with either video or just audio enabled, a setting that the host can determine and toggle on and off. Moderation tools give hosts a few ways to manage what guests do, including controlling their audio levels, disabling video, like we mentioned, and ultimately giving them the boot if they misbehave. Twitch's suspicious user detection feature adds a layer of safety for hosts looking to choose members of chat to bring into a stream. As an additional safety layer, only phone-verified Twitch users can appear as guests, and a digital backstage area makes it possible to lay out ground rules and coordinate beforehand. Twitch sees guest star as a natural evolution of the success it's seen in the just chatting category, which has exploded since 2020. Comparing the first 5 months of 2022 to the first half of that year, hours watched in that category shot up 151%, and just chatting creator revenue grew 169%, end quote. Every day, billions of people around the world connect with their favorite brands online through shopping, gaming, banking, learning, and more. Every second, the internet gets more chaotic with more cyber threats. Securing entire ecosystems, clouds, apps, APIs, and users grows more complex, causing friction that slows innovation and hampers agility. With Akamai, cybersecurity becomes an engine for innovation and growth. Whether you want to achieve unmatched security with Akamai's suite of app and API protection or embrace a zero-trust architecture, Akamai can help. With Akamai's insights from the world's most distributed compute platform, they deliver unique security research on the latest attacks and trends on everything from ransomware as a service gangs like Conti, DDoS, and phishing attacks to help you protect your business. Where else can you take advantage of insights from 7 trillion DNS queries per day? Connect with Akamai's experts on how you can achieve unmatched security. To learn more about Akamai and their security research, visit their website, akamai.com. That's AKAMAI.com.
At Frontier, we know you've had enough of cable internet. If you're tired of steep price hikes, upload speeds slower than download speeds, and worrying about Wi-Fi, then uncable yourself and switch to Frontier Fiber. With unrandom pricing, equal uploads and downloads, and our whole home Wi-Fi guarantee. Introducing internet that works the way it should. Frontier Gig Fiber, with our 3-year price guarantee. Plus, you can get a $200 Visa reward card on us. See frontier.com/fast4 for complete offer, terms, eligibility, and performance details, subject to availability.
It is not your imagination. Ransomware has exploded into a huge industry. According to FinCEN, U.S. financial firms processed around $1.2 billion in likely ransomware payments in 2021, up almost 3x year over year, quoting CNBC. FinCEN said there were 1,489 ransomware incidents costing nearly $1.2 billion last year, a substantial rise from $416 million in damages reported in 2020, according to the report. FinCEN's analysis covers 2021 with a focus on the second half of the year. The agency said 4 of the overall top 5 ransomware attacks reported during this period are tied to Russia. Around 75% of ransomware-related incidents are also related to the country. The surge in reports might be due to a step-up in enforcement since the Colonial Pipeline attack, according to the analysis. The attack shut down the pipeline for days, causing fuel shortages in the southeast and snarling air traffic across much of the U.S. President Joe Biden declared a state of emergency as a result. In March, President Biden signed a measure requiring some businesses to report certain cyber incidents and ransomware payments to the Cybersecurity, Infrastructure, and Security Agency. CISA also launched a campaign to reduce the risks of ransomware in January 2021, end quote. Finally today, an interesting raise and a really interesting app. A company called Rewind has released a Mac app that creates a searchable recording to help users find what they've seen, said, or heard while they've been on their computer, like anything and everything you've done. It's the sort of old dream of having an always-on documentary camera recording everything that you do. Rewind has raised a $10 million seed round led by A16Z at a $75 million valuation, quoting TechCrunch. Built by Dan Soroker, the co-founder and former chief executive of Optimizely, and Brett Bejek, Rewind wants to help people with their memory. The startup launching today uses nifty tech to record how someone scrolls and chats throughout their day. It creates a searchable recording of what happened when, who said what during that Zoom meeting, and every instance someone has ever brought up expense reporting hacks. The content of discussions, debates, and decisions are often lost forever as soon as a meeting is over, Soroker said. With Rewind, you never have to worry about losing this content again. You can go back to the exact moment in a meeting you are looking for by simply searching for a word that was said, a word that appeared on your screen, end quote. Soroka compares the app to a hearing aid, which he says changed his life after he started to go deaf in his 20s. To lose a sense and gain it back again felt like gaining a superpower, Soroka said. After leaving Optimizely in October 2020, he began looking for different ways to augment human capability. According to LinkedIn, he started a foundation in 2018 to, quote, fund and conduct scientific research in order to accelerate our path toward human mind emulation, end quote. In product form, this goal looks like Rewind. Soroka said that the startup, quote, uses APIs to determine the specific app that is in focus at any given time and then creates a timeline of that behavior. It also uses an API to allow deep linking to websites so people can open in Chrome directly from search results. Users don't need to integrate with Gmail, Dropbox, or Slack, but instead can just download and rewind to start capturing the apps. Put in practice, if, for example, you forget the URL of the landing page of a new rival app that someone mentioned during a developer stand-up, you can rewind through your day, find the moment in the meeting someone threw the link on the screen, copy the link, and paste. As for the why now question, Soroka had an immediate answer, quote, Apple Silicon, i.e. M1 and M2 chips. Without it, we couldn't do what we do. We leverage every part of the system on a chip to do everything locally on your machine, end quote. Rewind claims that it compresses raw video recording data up to 3,750 times without a loss of quality. Quote, that means even with the smallest hard drive you can buy from Apple today, you can store years of continuous recordings, the company said in a statement provided to TechCrunch ahead of today's announcement. Apple, by the way, is not an investor. Rewind addresses one of the biggest challenges with any app, user trust, head on. The recordings are stored locally on individuals' Mac computers. In theory, that means that the company doesn't touch the data. Rewind says that only users have access to their data. Soroka added that users can pause and delete recordings at any time, excluding specific apps like Signal or 1Password, or go incognito mode, saying that, quote, by default, we don't record Chrome incognito or Safari private browsing windows. There are still some risks, though, with storing a sensitive, all-encompassing repository of everything you've seen, said, or heard on a machine. Malware could potentially tap into sensitive data if your computer is compromised, for example. There's also the awkward dance of a Rewind user recording someone on their screen without their permission, which is illegal in some states. Soroka said that he recommends users ask those they are recording for verbal permission, emphasizing that only the user can have access to the recordings. Still, a user with Rewind may feel less inclined to complain about their corporate parents or share personal stories knowing that there is a recording of it somewhere. While the laws differ from state to state, we believe privacy is so important that we recommend users of our product hold themselves accountable to a much higher standard than the bare legal minimum, Soroka said, speaking about proactive recording consent. Not only is this the safest approach legally, but it is also just the right thing to do, end quote. The app is currently free, Soroka says, but there will be a freemium monthly subscription down the road. And despite his history in helping companies develop better marketing advertising campaigns, Soroka says that Rewind, quote, will never sell your data or do advertising, end quote. So obviously I went ahead and signed up for early access. If anyone can let me cut the line and let me in early, I'd be happy to report on this, because Lord knows I look up about 500 web pages and links and tweets and whatnot every morning. It would be super useful to remember where I saw a thing when I think about it later. So if anyone wants to let me in, be much obliged. Talk to you tomorrow.